What is a kingdom marriage? And is your marriage considered a kingdom marriage? The main idea behind a kingdom marriage is that you allow God to reveal His glory, achieve His purposes through your marriage. You submit to His will and authority for that marriage. This means our emotions, desires, plans, or ambitions for that marriage decreases, and only God's desires, plans, and ambitions for that marriage stands. You're basically saying to God, take my marriage, use my husband, use me and our children to reveal your glory. You're handing the marriage to God to be the commander, the captain of the ship. As a woman, what does this mean for us? What is our role in a kingdom marriage? Number one, every woman who desires a kingdom marriage must have a personal one-on-one relationship with God. You and Him alone. Your husband is not involved. Your pastor is not involved. You and your Abba. He speaks to you, reveals things to you, and gives you instructions. Every kingdom wife must have her own altar for God outside of her husband's. Number two, you must know your assignment. This can only be revealed to you by God when you have done number one. It is your relationship with God. This relationship, He helps you to reveal your assignment on earth. A woman who desires a kingdom marriage must realize that it comes with an assignment, a responsibility, your participation. Number three, submit yourself to be trained by God so that you can fulfill your assignment. Knowing your assignment and actually living in your assignment are two separate things. If there is prophecy concerning your life, it can hover for years in the spirit realm and not manifest if you do not apply yourself. There are steps you must take to bring down the prophecy to the earth realm where you live, where I live. We don't need prophecies in the spirit realm. We need it down here on earth. Number four, character. A woman who desires a kingdom marriage must have a kingdom mindset and character. Nobody should have to convince you or prove to you that there are certain things you just can't do. A kingdom wife's number one priority is to please God. So if you have to be convinced about certain things that you know would please God, then is He truly your number one priority? Anyone who can't please God, I don't even know how they can manage to please any other human. So today, I will be reading from Genesis 3. Now, in Genesis 3, we have a story of a man and a woman named Adam and Eve. They're married and they're living in Eden. Everything is beautiful. A stranger in the form of a serpent comes to Eve, the wife, to have a conversation with her. This stranger is asking her a question about a command God had given to her husband. Eve knew exactly what the command was because she repeated exactly what God had told her husband Adam. But if we go back to Genesis 2, verse 15 to 17, clearly we can see that Eve had not been created when God gave Adam that command. Therefore, we can assume that after her creation, her husband Adam sat her down and had a conversation with her to orient her about his relationship with God, what he is not able to do, what he cannot eat or touch, and how he and God have a bond that he intends to keep. So Eve knew, as a woman, as a wife, as a single lady praying for a kingdom marriage, what do you know about God? What do you know about his laws, his commands, his rules for your life first, and then that of your partner? And have you kept it? Are you keeping it? Are you obeying God now before marriage? Or are you assuming that the spirit of obedience will fall upon you after marriage? Because it does not work like that. So God and Adam had a thing going on, and Adam knew God and kept his commands before the arrival of Eve. Adam followed God the way God commanded him to follow. Eve came into an already established union between God and her husband. They both had a system going on. So, another point, a woman who desires a kingdom marriage must realize that you are coming into an already established union between God and your soon-to-be husband. You're marrying into what your husband has already maintained with God. You cannot come into the marriage with your own agenda, with your own ideologies, or with your own system. There's going to be problems. So now back to Eve. She's aware of God's commandment concerning the tree. Do not eat. Yet she decided to walk opposite to God's command. She had no fear in God at all. I personally think disobedience shows a lack of fear. And the lack of fear of God derives from the lack of knowledge of God. Those who truly know God, they fear God. Anyone who does not fear God does not know God. I don't care how many times you mention Jesus, a God, in a sentence or a conversation. I just want to know if you fear him. So we're going to talk a little bit about the devil, Satan. So Satan always needs access. Satan can never operate if a human does not give him access. So he loves people who have no knowledge of God because he knows what it means. That if they have no knowledge of God, they have no fear of God. So these are the people he enjoys having conversations with. Satan knew he wouldn't be able to access Adam because he knew Adam feared God. Adam had knowledge of God. So the more knowledge a person has of God, the harder it is for Satan to get you to disobey God. Adam and God spent time together. When Adam was naming the animals in the Bible, it was God that brought the animals to Adam. God would say, hey, here. And then Adam would give the animal a name, and God approved it. So they had quality time interacting, but nowhere in the Bible does it state that God and Eve spoke. I mean, there was no interaction at all. So Eve, on the other hand, had no one-on-one relationship with God. So she was a good access point for the devil to operate and influence her. So as a woman who desires a kingdom marriage and a kingdom man, your first step today is to go to God in prayer to reveal himself to you. You have to know God personally. Our lack of knowledge of God is a huge advantage to Satan. A woman who does not know God is a tool in the hand of Satan. You've made his job 90% easier. You become a great tool for him to destroy you and your husband. So when he comes into your mind to influence you like he did Eve, how do you know the voice of the devil? Well, I can answer The only way you know the voice of the devil is when you are familiar with the voice of God. So moving on, Eve gave Adam the fruit. After she had taken a bite, she handed it to her husband to take a bite, knowing where she plucked it from. That is so manipulative and deceitful. She concealed the fact that she got the fruit from that same tree that they were not supposed to eat from. She didn't tell Adam. She didn't tell him where she plucked the fruit from. So at this point, she knows what she's doing. She's desperate because the devil had told her that, hey, if you eat from this tree, you're going to be like a god. You're going to know between good and evil. You're going to have wisdom. So he had told her all these things that she liked. And she was like, you know what? Forget Adam. Forget God's commandment. Who is he anyway? Let me do what I want to do. So she knew what she was doing. So now let's go all the way to Genesis 3 verse 14. God arrives to Eden. He begins by asking questions. Adam blames Eve. Eve blames the serpent. God didn't ask the serpent any question because God already knew. Of course, like, who is the father of disobedience? Of course it was Satan. So God begins cursing, and he starts by cursing the snake. And then God goes on in verse 15. God says to the spirit behind the snake that made Eve disobey, and that spirit is Satan. God says he will put enmity between Satan and the woman, and between Satan's offspring and the offspring of the woman. There will be crushing, there will be striking. So it's a two-way battle. Like, we as women, we crush, and then Satan strikes. Which brings me to another point. A woman who desires a kingdom man and a kingdom marriage must be prayerful, or else that marriage may be your exit from this earth. Marrying a kingdom man isn't just about fun, fame, wealth, visibility, or enjoyment. There's an angry dragon who is enraged and wants to strike all of us. So you must crush him, or you can easily become a victim in your kingdom marriage. Do you know how to pray? Can you fast? Can you knock on heaven's door and God answers? Does God know you? Do the angels of God know you? A woman whose focus is on looking good, shopping, working, decorating, going on vacation, hanging out with friends and having fun. Okay, all of these things are great, but these things should not take 90% of your life. There has to be a balance. A kingdom marriage comes with spiritual responsibilities. You can look beautiful on the outside, but be a Deborah on the inside. Be a woman who has a ranking in the spirit realm. So my second reading will come from Revelations 12, the woman and the dragon, us again and Satan. So there's this pregnant woman. She's about to give birth. This could be a physical birth or a spiritual birth. Pregnancy means blessings, prophecies about to come to pass. And then this woman, Satan, shows up to devour her child. In verse 4, it says the dragon stood in front of the woman so that it might devour her blessing. So already, Satan is not afraid of a confrontation, guys. In verse 5, who stepped in to help her? God. She gave birth to her child, to her blessing, but Satan was there ready to eat her child up, to cut her celebration short. But God snatched up that child up to his throne. As a woman, who is your helper? If you mention your husband, you're right and wrong. If you mention your mom or your dad, you're right and wrong. If you mention friends or your pastor, you're right and wrong. When I read this, I had a couple of questions. I said, where were her family members and friends? Where was her husband? Who got her pregnant? And where was he when she was being chased by Satan? She was alone, guys. There was no physical person there to assist her. As a woman, you must know God as your personal Savior and Lord. Your husband is not your Savior. Your parents are not your saviors. Only God can snatch up your blessing and prepare a place for you to be taken care of. Same way he did with this woman. This was what he did to the Revelations 12 woman. He protected not only her child, but he also made preparations for her to be taken care of. So on both ends, Satan lost. So now, what was God's intention behind the creation of a woman? And why is there war between women and Satan? I will answer all these questions in my next video. Tune in and have a great day.